So I'm a big fan because I was recently struggling with the idea of free will, and I was hoping that you could explain it. If you had free will, you could create choices, meaning if your choices weren't influenced by outside causes, then essentially you would be creating effects without causes, right? Which would be impossible. So it would break the laws of causality. So how do you explain free will, and do you think it's theoretically impossible to prove free will exists scientifically?
I think it would be nearly impossible to prove that free will exists scientifically. I think that it's something that you have to take experientially and on faith. Because again, science assumes that there is a cause for every effect. And again, free will assumes that there are causes with no effect. Right? It's why the biblical idea and the traditional religious and kind of natural law philosophy of human beings, that human beings were made in the image of God, and because human beings were made with the image of God, that actively meant the ability to create ex nihilo, essentially, and make decisions ex nihilo. So is that possible to prove? I don't think that that's possible to prove. I also think that any system built on the idea of lack of free will is bound to collapse in on itself and is completely unworkable as a matter of human action. This is a debate I've had with Sam Harris multiple times, including on my podcast and on his podcast as well. I find it fascinating, but sure, I'm happy to admit that if your assumption is that every cause must have an effect and that every effect must have had a cause, then the idea of you being able to choose freely, in other words, in any given situation, you could choose A or you could choose B, then it's very difficult to substantiate on the basis of just that first premise that you mentioned.